Hello and welcome to Thinkpod, powered by the FII Institute. For more than 30 years, I led Sky News' coverage of global events, holding to account the politicians and change makers shaping the world of today. In this series, filmed at the 6th Future Investment Initiative in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, I've got the opportunity to question those shaping the future. At this inflection point in our history, how can we ensure that the future is one of prosperity and opportunity for all? This episode, we meet Peggy Johnson, a chief executive at the helm of Magic Leap, a tech company challenging the likes of Microsoft and Google in the promising augmented reality space.
We can place digital content into your physical world. It's a PC on your eyes.
After making the decision to pivot away from the consumer market, will Magic Leap find success in this competitive area? Well, welcome to Thinkpod. Please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Adam. My name is Peggy Johnson, and I'm the CEO of Magic Leap.
And Magic Leap is what exactly?
It is an augmented reality platform, and we make a head-worn device that you look through, and you still see your physical world, but we augment it with digital content that we place in your physical world.
Okay, I want to come on to that, but first of all, tell us how you got there, your background, because you've got a very deep background in tech.
A long time in tech. I was about 25 years at Qualcomm in San Diego, the chip company. They're in most of our handsets. And then was recruited by Microsoft by the new CEO at the time, Satya Nadella, to come to Microsoft and run their business development group. And I had a tech background and ran all of the business.
You're an engineer originally?
Exactly, originally an engineer. And everything was going great there. And then I saw that the role of CEO of Magic Leap was open, and I decided to raise my hand because I had been involved with augmented reality, both at Qualcomm. They had made a platform for mobile phones where you look through your mobile phone like the Pokemon Go sort of thing. And then at Microsoft, they have a device called HoloLens. And so I was always fascinated by augmented reality. And I had seen the technology at Magic Leap, and to me it was state of the art. And I decided to raise my hand and go for it. Because
you actually went into a company that was in trouble.
It was at the time. It had gone through some challenging times. And basically it was focused probably too early on the consumer market with the device. The consumer market can be a bit fickle. It needs a lot of content. It was a new technology, and it was expensive. You can think of it a little bit as mobile phones when they first came out. They were large, they were expensive, but enterprises bought them. And so I decided when I came into the company that we would pivot to enterprise, and that would be the entry point.
Because their first manifestation had failed on the market effectively.
Yeah, it didn't have much uptake, but we noticed that several businesses were buying it for use in enterprise applications. And we decided to make Magic Leap 2 100% focused on enterprise. We made it smaller, lighter, faster, more compute. We did quite a bit of listening to the customers, and that's what became our second-gen product.
And how are you financing it?
We have had investors. We are a private company. The Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia is one of our largest investors, and they've been wonderful. They've really taken a long-term view of this technology. And again, you can think of it like mobile phone technology. In the beginning, it just made voice calls, but now it's a computer in our pocket. We're along that same trajectory.
Except you're doing the hardware and the software, is that right?
We are. We're actually doing it top to bottom. We even have a semi-custom chip in the device, because when we were first building the device, before I got there were no chips that could really handle this incorporation of a device that scans the room in front of you, and it understands what is around you, and then we can place digital content into your physical world. And that's a highly complex piece of hardware, and we knew we had to build it from the ground up because nothing existed like it.
So how does that work? Where do you make the hardware? Where do you make the software, as it were?
We actually make it all in South Florida in the United States. We are, and from the very beginning, have based our manufacturing in the United States. And this highly complex optical piece that goes into the display comes in one end of the factory as glass substrate, and out the other end are the optical eyepieces that allow basically your eyes to believe that digital content is actually in your field of view. And it's very hard to do. It's not a heads-up display. A heads-up display, you might have some digital content written across the top of your field of view. This is actually placed in your field of view so you can see something far away across a factory or right on the desk in front of you, and your eye believes it's there.
And what is the advantage of that, as it were?
The advantages of that are you're still in your physical world. Think of it as having a heads-up view of your physical world. You're not looking down at your phone. In comparison to virtual reality, you're not fully in another artificial world. When you put our headset on, you see your world in front of you. And the content, for instance, can be a digital twin of an actual physical machine in front of you. And you're the frontline worker who's tasked to repair that machine. You can see inside the machine. You can be walked through the how to repair that machine with very little pre-training.
It's like having a handbook in your vision.
It's just like that. Yeah. In your ears and in your eyes. It's a PC on your eyes.
How do you choose what you see in augmented reality?
Well, literally, you can put anything in front of you. Another human. You can put, for instance, something you're designing as a group with several people, a car. So you can put a full-size car in front of you, and several of your designers could be in different continents, but you're all looking at that same car. You can real-time augment the car. The important thing is we are all seeing the same digital content, and we can all modify it, annotate it, and basically design together as if we were physically in the same room.
And as you say, your perception looking at the company was that it was practical workplace applications.
Correct.
And what were those?
At least that was the entry point. Eventually, we'll circle back to consumer when, like the mobile phone, there's further silicon integration and a reduction of componentry that can make it more of a glasses format. But the early enterprise applications that were rising to the top were healthcare. So surgeons can take it into the operating room, and on the actual patient, you can lay down the digital line where the incision goes if you're a surgeon, or you can, if you're a heart surgeon, we have a company that does actual catheterization of a heart. They used to do it with the surgeon looking at a 2D screen. And now, with the Magic Leap device on, the surgeon can see the live beating heart that the company Centiar has imaged, and then they can follow the catheter through the heart. It's more accurate, it's safer for the patient. It's a little more cognitive to understand when you have something 3D in front of you, rather than making your mind kind of translate a 2D screen.
Yeah, I was going to say, presumably to use it properly in critical circumstances, you need some kind of training initially, do you, or familiarization?
Some familiarization, but what we're trying to do is have a user experience where you can literally put the product on your head and with very little training be up and going very quickly. And there's different input modes. Speech is one. Eye gaze is another. You can be looking at a list of things, and if your eye settles on one of those things, you can select. You can select with hand gestures, and then we have a highly precise pointer. So all of these different modalities allow you to, in your physical world, be able to select, modify, move things around, make them bigger or smaller. The other industry that uses it quite a bit is defense for training. So soldiers that used to train with physical objects now can train with digital objects. It's much easier to change scenarios, and it's less overall cost.
And this is different from Google Glass, for example.
Well, Google Glass was an early version of this, but it wasn't as immersive. It wasn't as feature-rich as what we have with Magic Leap 2. We have something called dynamic dimming that allows you to be in a brightly lit area, like an operating room, and dim out the background and just see the patient's knee, for instance. We can bring the light down so much, we almost change the device into a virtual reality device where you're fully occluded. And the reasons for this are there's a lot of very brightly lit scenarios that digital content can get a bit washed out, but we can actually change the background or the entire scene to be darker and have that digital content pop.
I've watched a number of interviews with you, and you always get asked this question: is augmented reality challenging the metaverse or virtual reality?
I would say augmented reality is going to be the true potential of the metaverse, because virtual reality is limited. You're looking at an artificial world, and you can't see your physical world, which means it's largely an immobile experience. So you might be sitting in a chair, put on your virtual reality glasses, and you enter another world. Augmented reality is completely different. You still are in your physical world. You can see the coffee table in front of you, so you won't trip on it, and you can put digital content, useful digital content, into that world.
Does that mean Mark Zuckerberg's got it wrong?
I would say there are use cases for virtual reality, and those use cases oftentimes are gaming. Now, what they're doing with their latest version, the Oculus Pro, is something called pass-through virtual reality, which is cameras, front-facing cameras on the device, are imaging your physical world, recreating it, and then that's what you're seeing. So you are not seeing your physical world, you're seeing a recreation of your physical world, which again, there will be use cases for that. But for a surgeon, they want to see their patient, right? They want to see that patient in front of them. I don't think there's a surgeon alive who wants to look at a recreation of the patient as they're getting ready to operate. So that's why it's important. It's for these highly precise use cases, and surgery definitely is one of those.
And what about the take-up of it? I mean, the experience of military surgeons, whatever. What experience do you have of that?
And the third area that I didn't speak of yet is industrial and in factory settings.
Engineering.
Yeah, that sort of thing, where you want to gather a group of people together, or you want to augment something in your physical world with useful digital content. So we have been running an early access program since about January of this year, taking feedback from those three vertical areas that we're focused on, incorporating that back into the product. And we've only just launched at the end of September of this year our second generation product to general availability. So folks outside of our early access program can finally buy the product. So far, we've continued to see a high degree of interest from those three areas of industry.
So you can buy it now?
You can buy it now, yeah. And largely those are industries that are used to wearing something on their eyes. Surgeons wear things on their eyes. Defense, they have goggles and things like that. And in factory settings, there's safety glasses. And so we want it to go where there was already accommodation for that.
You're the CEO. Have you found a use for it?
We have a factory ourselves. Yeah. So we're able to use it ourselves. In fact, it helped a lot during COVID. We have an assembly sister factory in Guadalajara, Mexico, and we couldn't send our engineers there as we were bringing up the Magic Leap 2 factory lines. So we were able just to send devices and have our engineers stay in South Florida and talk through any challenges.
And do you foresee day-to-day uses that people would want?
I do. I think definitely, for instance, we're integrating with a lot of the video conferencing solutions like Microsoft Teams. We've started to integrate with that product. I believe it'll turn a meeting into a 3D meeting eventually, where rather than being on this flat screen in front of you, you can be more immersed in the content that you're talking about or you're modifying or building together. And so it'll change our meetings into more of a, you'll feel more present in the meeting than you do now with
What
Zoom
about
call.
competition? I mean, who's competing with you?
Largely our only competitor in the immersive augmented reality space is Microsoft HoloLens. But they're friendly because we're incorporating Microsoft Teams into the user experience.
Some of your critics say you spent a long time at Microsoft. I think your chief technology officer, she spent a long time at Microsoft.
She did.
They see you as a kind of offshoot or associate of Microsoft.
Well, I think Microsoft is, first of all, a great training ground for anybody. It's a wonderful company. And if you look around the industry, you see a lot of ex-Microsoft people running companies. And I got to learn from one of the best, Satya Nadella. But we basically are in the same industry, but so are others. Meta is in there spending quite a bit every year. All of that is good energy for the industry because previous to that, Magic Leap was really, we're almost 12 years old. And so we were in that business for a long time, largely by ourselves. So to have more research development coming into the augmented reality industry is actually good. It sort of raises all boats. And it helps grow the ecosystem of solutions that reside on augmented reality devices. So we see it as a good thing that there's money coming into this industry.
A lot of talk certainly at FII about education, the next generation. Where does that fit in with augmented reality?
It's very much another facet of what the device can do. We see it already in the training applications that we have. For instance, I spoke about surgeons. You could actually train surgeons. They can do the same operation over and over and over again. But the one that's really stands out for me, and I think has quite a bit of utility in the education space, is this idea of the ability to shorten the training time of new factory workers. So factory workers that are working with several of our software companies that have built solutions, in particular a company named PBC Linear. It runs a manufacturing facility in the Midwest in the United States, and they train their new workers using Magic Leap, and they've been able to reduce training time from roughly 3 weeks to about 3 days. There's something very comfortable about learning in a 3D environment, and I think that directly translates into education.
And if you look ahead 10 years, what would you say your ambitions are now and the ambitions for the company?
I would love to see it on every consumer. I would love for this technology to follow the same trajectory as mobile phones, where it started in industry and enterprise, but eventually everyone had one in their pocket. And I'd love to see glasses on everyone's eyes.
And they will be glasses rather than goggles.
I think they have to be glasses, not goggles, because consumers likely won't adopt something that's
And
big.
you're working on that, are you?
We're working towards that, I would say. So it needs further silicon integration and quite a bit of innovation in order to get, that's why you haven't seen very many glass forms in a highly immersive AR environment like we have, because the optics are very, very challenging. But Magic Leap has done it. They've got, over a decade's worth of experience building those optics and a manufacturing plant. So we have the ability to get there over time.
The future's bright.
It is.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Adam.
In these turbulent times, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Thinkpod for more insight and analysis.